Okay, yesterday we finished. We didn't say Hadron Lechazayrik, Hadron Lechazayrik, Hadron Lechazayrik. And today we're starting a new parak, the last 8 blot in Masechta Gitin. That's Hashem Yisbarach. Okay, now we know that a get is called a sefer krisus. It's not called a get at all. It's not called Igeris Tachrichon, and we saw what but it's not in the Torah called anything but a sefer krisus. Krisus means to cut. That the get has to have the capacity to go ahead and cut the relationship between what the husband and the wife. With this Mishnah, we're going to see a machlokes between Rabbi Elazar and the Chachamim regarding that concept. Says the Mishnah, Hamagarish Sasishtoi, someone divorces his wife, the Amar law and tells her, Hariyat muteres l'chol adam, elo leploni. You're permitted to everybody except so and so. You're permitted to everybody except so and so. Now, the word Ella, the way I typed it, except, is really a machlokes. Okay, we'll see what that means. So Reuben gives his wife a get, says you can go ahead and marry anyone you want except Shimon. You can't marry Shimon. Rabbi Eliezer says Rabbi Eliezer, it's a good get. She can get married. The Chachamim say that what? That it's not a good get. The Chachamim say it's not a good get. We'll see the reason in the Gemara. Rashi points out this is all stated Mishas Mesira. It's said at the time when the get is given over. It's not written in the get, it's the time it's written over. Kate said, Yaseh, what should you do? Yitlena himena, you should take the get back from her. V'yachzir and v'yinenalon, give it back to her. V'yoymula hariyat muteres l'chol adam. You're mutter to anybody. In other words, there's no question, fellas, that this get is a kosher get. As opposed to the past, we've seen Gitin a puzzle. If you Shina Shmayu Shma, you change names of the get. Or you wrote the get l'shem a different malchus when you shouldn't have. In other words, innately in the get itself, there was a problem. Then the get was puzzle. Over here, we're not discussing a puzzle get. We're describing an amira, a statement made at the time that the get was given. As a result, therefore, the get still innately is a good get, and therefore you have the option of reusing the get, which I kind of find interesting that the Torah, how many times in this Masechta have we had the case, and this is the first time it says, well, you can go ahead and reuse it again. We saw a machlokes earlier between Shimon ben Elazar and Rabbi in a scenario where, I forgot this, I think it was Ayin Ches, where he's, where a guy said, Kinsi Shtar Choiv Zed, that he gave this Shtar Choiv, and she took it as such, and it's not a get till he says Hagitech. So we had a machlokes. Like Rabbi, he was able, when it's in her jurisdiction, to simply say, Hariyat muteres l'chol adam, here's your get. Later, Shimon ben Elazar, since at the time that the get was given over, right, he didn't say it correctly, he would have to go back and then give it over again. So this apparently would be very similar to the shita of Rav Shimon ben Elazar that requires a nunasina. That seems even Rebbe, who argued by the case of Kinsi Shtarchov, he gave her a get under the guise of being a Shtarchov. Rebbe said it's okay, just simply say afterwards it's a get. It didn't require taking back and regiving. Over here, Rebbe apparently would agree that you would have to re-give the get because you didn't give it on the right, but you gave it on a certain condition, if you will. Okay, the last end of the Mishnah, Kisvu b'saychai af b'shechaz amachka pasel. If it's written inside the get, then this Tanai, even if you're moichik it, it's pasel. And I have written over here. Let's see, a Taisvus not pay dalet on the base. So let's go ahead. Pay dalet on the base. There's a Taisvus there. The last Taisvus before it gets wide, before the wide line. As Taisus, as Rabbi Shaya Pick and the Mesilas Yesharos points out, this is Shayach to the Mishnah. So this Tosfos is an explanation of that. In Kisru B'Soichai, if it was written in the get that you can marry everyone except this individual, Pirish, Gishal Get Ela Al T'nai Zeh. The get was written on this condition that you can't marry, so you can marry everyone except so and so. The ain't kan krisis, and as a result, you don't have a krisis. It's this. since she's tied to that one person in the world that you can't marry, it's because of their relationship. So this is not a sefer krisos. If Reuven makes a tanai that you can marry everyone else in the world except Shimon, so the fact that she can marry Shimon is because of connection to Reuven. That's not a sefer krisos. Umashma the dafka chutz d'loyavi krisos chazun mafko pasol. In other words, dafka this one would not be good, but any other mechika would be good. You have to go ahead and make sure that the yimakuyim, the mekach, before it says you're permitted, and the world is noyig to be machmir that any get that was machak you should not be able to go ahead and use. So Tosfos gives us the reason, that last clause of the Mishnah, that the reason why it's machak is because once the get was written on this condition, it's not a get. In other words, innately the get is wrong. It's not a. What's a get called? Repeated Torah is sefer krisos. Since Shimon Shimon, she can't marry Shimon because of Reuven. It's not a sefer krisos. But any other type of something written in the get, which would not be a chasar and krisos, would be okay. And Tosfos says we're machmer in the end that any machika of a get would not be okay. Okay, going back to the first thing in the Mishnah, if a person goes ahead and it says you can marry everybody else except this person, says Rabbi Eliezer, it's a good get. Says the Chachamim, it's not a good get. Iboilahu, hi Elo. Listen, Lamda Shashayla. Hi Elo Chutzu, Oy Almenasu. Okay, let's read the Mishnah according both ways. Hamagarsis Ishtoi, Va'amallah Hariyat Muteres L'chol Adam, except for Shimon. Hamagarsis Ishtoi, Va'amallah Hariyat Muteres L'chol Adam, on the condition that you don't marry Shimon. Those are the two possible ways to say it, guys, right? Ella can mean you can marry everyone else except, or this is you get on the condition that you don't marry Shimon. What is it? Why would the nafkamina be? Why would the nafkamina be? If it's accept, the get's given on that terms, then it's not shaykh to be moichel that. If it's given on a tanai, then it would be shaykh to be moichel. This is the This is how he explains the chilik between the two. Again, one more time. This is your get. You can marry everyone except this person. That's not a tanai. That's not a tanai. That's the clause of the get. It's not a condition. It's not subject to atu. It's not subject to mechila. However, this is your get on this condition. So now I go ahead and I remove the condition. So according to the lashon of chutz, it would be a good get. According to tanai, it would be a good get. It could be Michael. So it says the Gemara. Chutzu uda pligi rabban Allah Rabbi Eliezer. If it's a lashon of chutz, the other chachamim disagree with Rabbi Eliezer and say you can't use it. The shayir lo beget, because he left over in the get. In other words, what does left over in the get means? He's still keeping his relationship with her vis-a-vis one individual. She's also to marry Shimon because of her relationship to first husband Reuven. That's a shayir beget. You left over the sefer krisos. You're not cutting the relationship completely. You're mishayir, you leave over part of that relationship. That's not a sefer krisos. And therefore the chachamim would say it's not a get. We'll see what Rabbi Eliezer why it is. But later chachamim, since you're mishayir beget, it's not a sefer krisos. Thus, however, aval ba'almanas moidele, but by almanas he would agree midi dahavia kol tanai ba'alma. So if Ella is chutz, that's where he goes ahead and disagrees. But this is your get on the condition that you don't marry Reuven. This is the get on you give me $200. This is the get on manas that you take care of my father. This is the get on the manas that you come back within 30 days. It's no different than the other multiple tanoim that we've mentioned throughout this Masechta. And therefore it would be a good get. Just don't marry Shimon. Just don't marry Shimon. By Dilma, perhaps, Almanasu. Maybe it says Almanas. Uben Almanasu the pligi Rebbe Eliezer Adarabonan. What does Ella mean? If it means a condition, so if it means a condition, then Dafka there, Rebbe Eliezer says, well, keep the condition and you're good. We'll have to see the svar of the Chachamim, why not? But by chutz, where the get is established with a continuation of the relationship of marriage based to Ruvain, because he's going ahead and using that power to Asar on Shimon, then Rebbe Eliezer would be Maida. So those are the two tzadim to the Shaila, right? If it's a din in chutz, then the Chachamim would agree by Almanas. If the Machlokes is by Almanas, Rebbe Eliezer would agree by chutz. That's the two tzadim to the Shaila. Okay. We know that it's shayach tzaras in various objects. Foremost is the person. A person gets tzaras. A beggar can get tzaras. And even a house can get tzaras. Even a house can get tzaras. We have a Gemara, it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu would put tzaras in the house of when you capture Eretz Yisrael, he put tzaras in the house, so you'd have to break down the house, so you'd find all the treasures that are hidden behind the walls. Okay. In order to be a base menuga, it has to be a Jewish house. It has to be owned by a Jew. Okay, with that in mind. And with that in mind, that's only the Gemara can do. We're going to bring a raya that Ella does not mean almanas, that Ella means chutz, that Ella means an exception to. It doesn't mean a condition, it means an exception to. Amar Avina Toshma. Kol habotim mitamoyim b'negoyim, all houses can be mitamo tumas negoyim. Ela shalom dekachavim. So let's guys, before we continue, let's stick in both possibilities. Any house can become a house of a mitzayra, except the house of a goy. Does that make sense? Bobblehead? Makes sense, right? Any house can be a house of a tzras on the condition that the guy's house becomes tzras. Any Jewish house can become a house tzras almanas that a guy's house can become. Obviously, it doesn't make any sense. Says the Gemara. Bishleim chutzu shapir. Bishleim, you can tell me an exception to the rule: a Jewish house except a Goyish house. Ella makes sense to say chutz. Ella amid, if you're going to say almanasu, if you're going to say what, it's almanas. If you can say it's condition, almanas the loy metama, but the other kachavim who the metama. This is a tzaras on the condition that that the Goyish house gets tzaras, right? Hametama but the other kachavim loy metama bas Yisrael, right? But if the house metama the house of the Zara, it would not be metama of Yisrael. But the other kachavim metama. In fact, the house of the Zara cannot contract tuma. But Tanya and the sati negat tzaras the base eretz achusaschem, and I'm go ahead and put the negat tzaras base achusaschem. Eretz achusaschem metama b'negoyim. Then but the other kachavim metama b'negoyim. Well, the shmami no, we hear from here chutzu that it must be chutz shmami no. Hear from here. So amazingly enough, the Gemara right away said, "You're right. It came in almanas. It means chutz." So let's redo the Mishnah. Rebbe Eliezer says a huge chiddush, guys. Rebbe Eliezer says even though she can't marry Shimon because of Reuven saying you can't marry Shimon, it's still considered a divorce. Like the Chachamim, it makes a lot of sense. This is not a sefer krisis. You're still binding her to you through the fact you're telling her she can't marry Shimon, right? That's the way we're fearing the Mishnah. Now, says the Gemara, Masisa like Tana. The Mishnah is not like this Tana. The Tanya, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Le'nechalku Rebbe Eliezer v'Chachamim ala megaris ashishtay v'amalo hariyat muteres l'chaladam chutz miploini shein megareshes. Okay, in that case, if they would say that if you go ahead and you're mutter to everybody except so and so, shein megareshes. That's not like our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah says Rabbi Eliezer would say you would. Avi, we're up to pay base on an aleph, 3 lines in the bottom. Aman nechleku al amegarish ishlei v'amla hariyat muteres l'cholodam al menas shloi tinasi l'ploini. Machlokes is what on Tanai amid base. So Rabbi Eliezer Matir l'chol adam. Rabbi Eliezer says she'd be permitted to marry everybody. Chutz mi'osei ish. The chachamim oisrim, and the chachamim say it's asa. Okay, let's just go over what we just saw. Listen up, Ravi. I'm doing it to cover you. A man is divorcing his wife and saying you can marry everyone in the world except somebody. So let's go Reuven and Shimon. It says Reuven, you can marry everyone in the world except Shimon, right? Says the Gemara. We ascertain when it says Ela Shimon, it means except Shimon. You can marry everyone in the world except Shimon. It's not that I'm divorcing you on the condition that you don't marry Shimon. I'm divorcing you on the fact that you cannot marry Shimon. Not a condition, but you are permitted to everyone except Shimon. We said that's what it means. We brought a raya from the Goyim when it says Ella. Ella means chutz, except. It's not a condition, right? So therefore, the machloikus between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim is Rabbi Eliezer would say even when she's connected to him, to Reuven, through his statement of chutz, nonetheless, it's a good get. The Chacham say it's not a good get. We're now bringing in another opinion. Over here, Ella does not mean chutz. Ella means a condition. But Rabbi Eliezer would be moida by chutz that it's not a good get because you're connected, right? Eliezer will be moida, it's not a good get because you're connected. That's what we're saying so far. Rabbi Eliezer mata by almanas. Rabbi Eliezer would mata by almanas, and the Chachamim would say no. The Chachamim would say no. My time of the Rabbi Eliezer, back in the Gemara, 2 lines from the top. Midi the Havia called Tanai Ba'alma. It's like any other Tanai, right? It's like any other Tanai. Rabbanon called Tanai the Alma le Shayar le beget Hacha Shayar le beget. Guys, let's go through some of the previous Tanoim. This is your get on the condition that you give me $200. Does the condition a separate entity from the get? Clearly, nothing to do with the get. This is your get on the condition that you nurse my son. This is your get on the condition that you take care of my father. This is your condition. I don't come back from 12 months. We can see as the get lechud and the tanai lechud. What about this condition? This is your get on the condition that you can't marry so and so. Now the tanai is gebunden. It's connected to the get itself. Says Rabbi Eliezer, there's no difference between a tanai that's gebunden to the get and a tanai of $200 or to shamish Abba and so forth. Says the Chachamim, no, there's a tremendous difference. Even though it's conditional, and even though the get apparently is a good get, since the condition of the impedes me from marrying somebody else. Now, why? Why does it impede you from somebody else? Because you're still married to me vis-a-vis that person. That is considered shire. You left over the get, and it's not a sefer krisos. It's an inherent difference between the two. It's an inherent difference between the two. Okay? Now, there's a nice thesis here. Let's see this thesis. Very nice thesis. Top thesis. Mashma dafilu b'chaye oisei ish matiruli nasei. So this is your get on the this is your get, right? On the condition that you don't marry Shimon. She could remarry right then and there. She can remarry right then and there, even though Shimon's alive. The Hiksher Rabbeinu Shmuel, a my loy chashinon dilma loy to kayim atanai. Why aren't you worried that maybe she won't fulfill tonight? Maybe she'll marry Shimon. Kidama leel, Misha achsu, gabe harizeh gitech almanashe tzid and limitayim zuz. Right? This is your get on the condition that what you give me 200, and it says loitina say achetiteng. Do not get married till you give the 200. It's a good get. Fulfill the Tanai, you can get married. But until you fulfill the Tanai, you can't get married. So why over here would she be able to get married? Why aren't we worried that why she won't fulfill the Tanai? Gemara is contrasting the Tanai of the last parak to this Tanai. Over there by 200, we don't let her get married. Why? Because she didn't fulfill the Tanai. So why over here will we let her get married if she fulfills the Tanai? Well, let's skip the next case. We're going to get to Bez Hashem. V'tiritz, skip down to V'tiritz of Rav Elchanan. The shiny get matayim zuz. The yesh lachush pen tafsid Esa Shelah, she'll lose all her money, and you won't be able to fulfill the Tanai. In other words, sometimes it's not biyadai to fulfill a condition. I have to give you 200. Maybe I'll lose my money. I won't have any money. What's the Tanai over here? That I won't marry what? Shimon. Is that in her hand always to fulfill that condition? Always. And that's the difference between the two. Right? It says, look at the end of Taisus. Right? He can't force her against the will to marry her. So she knows the one thing in the world that she can't do is to stay away from Shimon. That's the one thing in the world she can't do is marrying Shimon. That is totally in her jurisdiction, and therefore we're not worried. By the 200 zuz, we're worried. So now she has the 200, but there's no guarantee she'll always have that money. Mashenkin, on the other hand, when it's totally dependent, it's in biyadi that I can control my fate. There's no way in the world she's marrying Shimon, and therefore she can marry with this get according to Rebbe Eliezer. Beautiful chilik. I like to see the type of taisus that you just see the logic of different things. Okay, let's go back. So according to this Almanas, Rabbi Eliezer says it's no different than the other Tanai, and the Chacham say no, this Tanai is different. The difference between by 200 is independent of the get. This Tanai is intrinsically connected to the get. Okay, now, my time with the Rebbe Eliezer. What's the reason of Rebbe Eliezer? Right? Rebbe Eliezer says a chiddush. Rebbe Eliezer says I'm not worried, even though I'm a shire beget, even though, guys, whether it's chutz or whether it's Tanai, clearly you're being Mishayir beget. Clearly you're connected to your Ruvain, correct? What's the reason that Rebbe Eliezer says that it's okay? Okay, now we know by now the pasuk. The pasuk says, that if Yikach Isha Ubala, V'hayelim Zloy Simsachem Be'einav, the Kosova Sefer Krisis, Minasam B'yada, V'holcha V'shulchem V'yatzim Mibeisai, V'holcha V'yishlis Acher shall leave and shall go to somebody else's house. That's what the pasuk says. V'yatzim Mibeisai, V'holcha V'yishlis Leish Acher, Afil Lo Yitiro Elo Leish Acher, Harizum Migureshes. Even if the get only permits her to marry one person, it's a get. She receives the get. Even if she goes to one ish, that's a good get. This is Rabbi Yanai's pshat in Rebbe Eliezer, guys. This is pshat according to Rabbi Yanai in Rebbe Eliezer. Since the get permits it to one person, it's a good get. Now, the rest of this Gemara is it's a little mixed up. Usually when you see the word Rabbanon, it usually means the Tana, the Chachamim, the Tana. Seldom do you see an Amoira called Rabbanon. Seldom you don't see, in this case, like the Bach, and like the Messiah Hashas, this Rabbanon refers to Amoroyim, who will disagree with Rabbi Yanai in the svara of the pasuk of Rabbi Eliezer. So this Rabbanon is arguing Rabbi Yanai as to what Rabbi Eliezer held. So this is Rabbanon Amroyim. So let's go with the girsa of the Bach. Locate the Bach, fellas. Locate, if you have a classic Gemara, it's on the left side. I go say Bach. If you have something else, you're on your own. go find the Bach somewhere. By the Aleph, by the Bach. Good. The Rabbanon who disagree, guys, there's a little tongue twist over here. The Rabbanon who disagree with Rebbe Eliezer, what did they do with the Ish Acher? Right? The Rabbanon who disagree with Rebbe Eliezer, what did they do with the Ish Acher? Hai Ish, L'chol Ish V'ish. Right? That Ish means for each person. In other words, not person, but every person. L'chol Ish V'ish. it's a sefer krisis not for only to mata one individual. It's a sefer krisis to mata all individuals, each, not a single individual, but a universal. Okay, so now, if that's the case, then what is the svara of Rabbi Elazar? So we have the Rabbanon. Explain why they disagree with Rabbi Yanai's pshat with that pasuk, and now we're going to have a separate pshat in Rabbi Elazar according to the Rabbanon. For Rabbanon Amri, the Rabbanon meaning not the Rabbanon guys who argue on Rabbi Eliezer, the Rabbanon who argue on Rabbi Yanai's time of Rabbi Eliezer, if you follow. For Rabbanon and Rabbanon Amri time of Rabbi Eliezer mehacha, right? It says Isha, right? Now you can go back in the Gemara, right? It says what? It says Isha, right? The Isha Gerusha me Isha, lo yikachu. And a woman that is divorced from her man, lo yikachu, afilu lo nizgarsha ela me Isha, right? Nifsala min hakahuna. Even if what? Even if she's only divorced from her husband, she's passed from the kuna. Alma havegita. We see it's a get. So the reason for Rabbi Elazar is not from the pasuk of V'yatzami Beisalish Acher as like Rabbi Yanai. It says the Isha Gerusha Me Isha. This is a pasuk in Pashas Emor. Guys, this is speaking what a kohen, who a kohen is allowed to marry. A kohen can marry a Gerusha, but she's referred to Isha, a woman, right? A woman, Gerusha, who is sent away, Me Isha, from her man. So even if she's sent away from one man, that would be, she would make a puzzle to kahuna. She'd be a gerusha. This is Rebbe Eliezer's reasoning why even if just one person, it would be a good get. So let's go through what we have over here. Okay. We have Rebbe Eliezer saying a chiddush. According to the first pshat, he says it even with the lashon of chutz, meaning this is your get, except you can marry Shimon, which is a huge chiddush. He says it in the second lashon from Almanas, conditionally. The Chachamim disagree in both. They disagree from the lashon of chutz. Clearly, it's a shire beget because you're holding on to her. And even by Almanas, where there's a svar to say there's a keep the condition and it's a good divorce, since the condition is connected directly to the get, it's a shire beget. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, what is the svara of Rabbi Eliezer's huge chiddush? That even if you're not divorcing from every person, you're not mutter to every person in the world, it's a good get. It's a sefer krisis. And he says, well, the pasuk says differently. According to Rabbi Yanai, it says, even if you're permitted just to go to one person. So, and the Rabbanan arguing Rabbi Yanai says, no, that ish means each and every person. But where do you learn out from? You learn from Pashas Emma, from the Pashas of Kahuna, where it says in the Pashas of Kahuna, the Isha Gerusha Me Isha Lo Yikachu. Even if only one person who would pass off the Kahuna, and that's his source. Says the Chachamim, we have a problem. For Rabbanon, what does the Rabbanon do with the source of the Rabbanon's pshat in Rebbe Elazar? What do they do with the source in Pashas Emor? It says Issachun is shiny. Issachun is different. We know when it comes to Kahanim, there are mitzvahs Yiseiros. The Kahanim have extra mitzvahs because they have Vaida. So Einachinami, Le'inyan a Kayin, it's considered a Gerusha. Le'inyan a regular person, it would not be considered a Gerusha. A regular person, it would not be a good get, right? Why? Because you're still connected to the original husband. Good, guys, so we have, Baruch Hashem, we have a clarity of what we're doing, and we did it well. Boy, Rabbi, says Rabbi. Kedushin heyach. What about kedushin? Says Rashi. What's the case? Right? What's the case by kedushin? Up 2 lines where it gets wide, thin where it gets thin. Hiskachi li, you're mekudeshes to me, la'aseh l'chol adam, ta'asa on every person in the world, chutz mi pliny mahu. You go under the chuppah and you say, Hariyat mekudeshes l'chol adam, Hariyat mekudeshes li, except for Harry. Hariyam Mukudeshes Li, except for Harry. Regarding Harry, you're not an Eshes Ish. Just like regarding, let's see with Shimon. Just like regarding Shimon, you're not divorced. Huadin regarding Shimon, let's get rid of Harry. Huadin Shimon, you're not married. What would the din be over there? But we want to know what Kedushin. What would the din be over there? Says the Gemara. I'll tell you what the din would be. Tiboil Rebbe Laza, Tiboil Rabbanon. It's a shayla according to Rabbi Eliezer, and it's a shayla according to Rabbanon. Tiboil Rebbe Eliezer. Ad kan like coming Rebbe Eliezer hacha over here by Gerushin Elamishum Diksivi Kra, because I have a pasuk to go ahead on and back me up. Aval Hassam over there, Kinyan Ma'alia Binan. We need a good Kinyan. You don't have it. By Dilma V'yatza V'haisa, you have a hekash between a vayili yitzia. V'yatza mibeisai v'haisa l'shacher. We saw that we used this earlier many times. The hekesh, the relationship, the correlation between get and kedushin. So now, fellas, in Svara, who makes more sense? Clearly, the Chachamim make more sense than Rebbe Eliezer. Rebbe Eliezer is a chiddush nifla, that you can be divorced, but not to everybody. Right? You can be divorced, not to everybody. That chiddush was stated according to Rabbi Yanai because it says, and according to the Chacham, it says Gerusha Meisha, right? So in other words, we had the chiddush, the outside svara is you should not be, it should be a good get. Comes along the Torah telling me it is a good get. Without the Torah telling me, what would the svara be? It's no good. So to therefore kedushin, it would not be a good kedushin because I have no pasuk to go ahead that it should be a good kedushin. By get, I have a svara to go against. I have a pasuk to go against the outside svara. Guys, I'm learning. You always have to say, what do I need the pasuk for? I need the pasuk because you would say the opposite. Without the pasuk, you wouldn't know this. So I would say there's no way in the world this is a good get. If you're divorced from everyone except Shimon, I would say it's not a good get. Comes when the Torah says it's a good get. Masha Enki by Kedushin, where the Torah doesn't tell you, what will I say? It's not a good Kedushin. How can I be? I can live with it. I can't. No, I'm an Eshes just regarding anybody else. Anyone's with me is Chayiv Chenek, except Shimon. So if I have no pasuk to matter it, of course I don't matter it. Or no, I have the famous Hekesh. Once I establish it, what by get, v'hoisa, v'yotzim v'esa v'hoisa, v'yotz is get, v'hoisa lish acher is kedushin. I have a hekesh that tells me by kedushin as well it would be a good kedushin. That's one way. Those are two studim for Rebbe Eliezer, guys. So it's a shiloh according to Rebbe Eliezer. Next, back in the Gemara, tiboy l'Rabbanon, and it's a shiloh even according to the Rabbanon that say by get it's no good. That say by get it's no good. Akan like Rabbanon hacha ella the bein increases the leka. Aval hasam kinyan koldahu. So I didn't make the best kinyan, but I did make a kinyan regarding everyone else in the world. I'm acquiring her. It's not the best kinyan because there's one person I'm not acquiring. But says the Chachamim, so by get where I need a safer creases, I don't have it because there's a kosiv. Over there by kedushin, it's a kinyan, it's a acquirement. So I acquired, except by dilma v'yatza v'haisa, or maybe make the hekesh, just like by get, it's no good. So too by what? So it comes like, guys, watch. Like Rebbe Eliezer, if I make the hekesh, it's going to be a good kedushin, just like it's good get. Like the chachamim, if I make the hekesh, just like by get, it's no good. Who I think kedushin, it won't be good. So the hekesh goes ahead and affects it in totally different ways. And for the Gemara, but lebasadi boilahu, if the Rav Abba asked the question, hada pashta, they will push it. Vein l'Rebbe Eliezer, vein l'Rabbanon, but inin v'yatza v'haisa. You would need what? You would need v'yatza v'haisa. You would need what? V'yatza v'haisa to be able to go to ish acher and make the hekesh. So like the chachamim, it's not a good kedushin. Like Rebbe Eliezer, it would be a good kedushin because just like by get, it's good get. Amar Rabbi, im tim tzalaima. If you're going to tell me isil the Rebbe Abba. Okay, guys, outside. Let me give you Yevamis. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, 3 brothers. Reuven dies. Shimon does not do Yibum. He does Maimer. Remember Maimer? Maimer is the Kedushi D'Rabbanan. He gave a Kesef Kedushin. What does Maimer do? It makes exclusive to him that he can marry her, and also you, besides Chalitza, you would need a get. Okay? So now, Shimon dies. Falling to Levi, can Levi go ahead and do Yibum? The answer is no, because this is a case of Eish Shnei Mason, the wife of 2 Mason. There's 2 Zikas over here. Since Shimon didn't go ahead and be Miyabim, the Reuven's wife, all he did was Maimer. So in this wife, let's call her Miriam. Miriam has 2 Zikas. The Zika of Reuven, the fact he died. The Zika of Shimon, the fact he gave a Maimer, and he dies. But the Maimer didn't take off Reuven's. So falling to Miriam is Esha Shnei Mason, the wife of 2 Mason. In that case, it will not be, you won't be able to do Yibum. Good? In that case, you won't be able to do Yibum. It's a good framework. We're now going to ask a Shaila within that framework. Like, what's the Shaila? Let's see. Says the Gemara. Amar Abaya. Im Tim Sulayma, Isa the Reb Abba. If you're going to say Reb Abba, you make the Hekesh, the Yatsa V'Haisa. Ba Ruvain, the Kitcha Chutz Me Shimon. Reuven goes ahead. He's Mekadesh the whole world except Shimon. You're permitted to Shimon. Uba Shimon, the Kitcha Chutz Me Reuven. Shimon, who she's able to marry, is Mekadesha Chutz Me Reuven. Umesu Shneim. Oh, and they're brothers, by the way, guys, they're brothers. They're brothers. And they both die. Misyabemis Levi would be able to do Yibum. So what are you going to ask me? Isn't the case of Esha Shnei Mesim? You have the Kedushin of Reuven and you have the Kedushin of Shimon. Good. Ve'einani koyer ba Esha Shnei Mesim. I won't call it the Esha Shnei Mesim. My timer. Kedushay de Reuven ahana. Kedushin de Shimon lo yahana. The Kedushin of Shimon does not help. Why? Shimon's Kedushin, fellas, did not answer on anybody. Shimon's Kedushin did not answer on anybody. She was answer on the whole world because of what? Because of Reuven. Shimon saying you're mutter to the whole world, us and the whole world except Reuven, didn't get anything. She was mutter to Reuven because Reuven's Kedushin. So therefore, Shimon's Kedushin, Levi would be able to go ahead and be miyabim this because you don't have 2 zikas over here. You don't have any zika from Shimon. It's a beautiful lumdus. You have nothing from Shimon. Guys, let's go. Contrast the case. Okay, contrast the case. I feel so comfortable in Yavamis now. You're all experts, somewhat. Not that we're going back to do it again, but again, to the extent, guys, this you can understand beautifully, right? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, 3 brothers. Reuven dies, Zika to his wife. Shimon does Maimer. Shimon dies. Levi now has 2 Zikas. The Zika of Reuven, which was never taken off because Shimon didn't do Yibum. The Zika of Shimon because he did Maimer. He was married to her, the Rabbanan. Esha Shnei Mason. What do you have over here? 3 brothers, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven gives a Kedushin except for Shimon. Shimon gives a Kedushin except for Reuven. They both die. You would think it's a case of Esha Shnei Mason. And the answer, it's not. Because there's no Zika from Shimon. Shimon's Kedushin did nothing. Shimon's Kedushin asked on the rest of the world, which she was also already. Shimon matter to Reuven, which she was permitted already. Did nothing. The male is not a case of Esha Shnei Mason. Beautiful. Okay. My timer, Kedushin Reuven ahani, Kedushin Shimon le'ahani. Ve'ela Esha Shnei Mason hechi mishkachas la. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean Esha Shnei Mesim, the case of Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yibum, and Maimer. That's clearly a case. What it means is, in this scenario, like Rebbe Lazar, and even the tzad of the Chachamim, like Taisvais, where do you find the scenario? Kigoin, Sheba Reuven, the Kitcha Chus Shimon. Okay, we start off. Reuven was Mekadesha, with the exception of Shimon. Uba Shimon, and comes along Shimon. Uba Shimon comes along Shimon, the Kitcha Stam, and Mekadesh Stam. the kedusha Ruvain ahana lemesra alma, the kedusha Shimon ahani lemesra Ruvain, right? Like Ruvain, fellas, Shimon is now answering on Ruvain. Shimon could answer on Ruvain. The case before, Shimon said chutz mi Ruvain. She was mutter to Ruvain. Shimon's saying now, listen, Ruvain left me open to be Makadishu Miriam. I'm in Makadishu totally. And that is Kedushin. Good, it's vis-a-vis the rest of the world, it's not, but vis-a-vis Ruvain it is. And then they both die. So now that would be a case of Eish Shnei Mason. Let's go through the fingers. Ruvain, Shimon, B'Levi. Ruvain gives Kedushin except Shimon. Okay? So now, Shimon gives Kedushin for the whole world. Shimon's Kedushin, therefore, is a Kedushin vis-a-vis Ruvain. He's answering on Ruvain. They both die. 2 zikas. There you go. Boy, Abaya.
Isn't she also to Shimon als Eishes Ach?
What?
They're brothers. So why isn't she also to Shimon the Mela? Because she's Eishes Ach. It's an erva.
But it was. What are you asking?
It doesn't matter what Reuven or Shimon said. Once Reuven was Makadish her, she's also to Shimon, isn't she? The Torah asked her.
Regarding Shimon, she's not married to Reuven. Regarding Shimon, she's not married to Reuven. What did Reuven say?
That she's mutter to Shimon.
Okay, so
But how can he say that? The Torah said she's also to Shimon.
But why?
Because she's the wife of his brother. Reuven and Shimon.
I have to think about it. I have to think about it. I have to think about it. Okay, let's finish up. Good, it's a good question. Boya baya. Amala yami teres chaladam chutz mi Ruvain v'Shimon. Because of Amala leRuvain v'Shimon. Mahu. Mi aminan. Okay, so what happened over here? Ruvain said, "You mutter to everyone." So not Ruvain. Somebody said, "You mutter to everyone." Chutz mi Ruvain v'Shimon. Because of Amala, before he gives it a get, he says liRuvain v'Shimon. What's the din? What's the shaila over here? Mi aminan maida asala shara. That had been asa. Do we say that what? The get is now, that was asa, now is permitted. In other words, before, when this get was given, she wasn't able to marry. She wasn't able to marry Reuven v'Shimon. Correct. Now, when he has chazara, he's making it a full-fledged get across the board that she could marry Reuven v'Shimon. Aydilma, my the asa shara, umay the shara asa. Maybe the kavana is that you right. I want to asa the whole world, and I want to permit you to marry Reuven v'Shimon. What does he mean? So again, Hariyat muteres l'chol adam, right? You're mutter to everyone except Reuven v'Shimon. Or then you say no, and then you say, then you go back and you say before you give the get, you say li Reuven v'Shimon. Doesn't mean that now you're mutter to everybody. So this is shaila even like the chachamim. That's why Tosfos points out this is not a shaila like Rabbi Eliezer. Even the chachamim, this is a tzad heter over here. Because you be mutter to everybody, so it's not a share beget. For Dilma, maybe it is a share beget, but it's a huge share. Why? Because he's saying that Reuven v'Shimon you would be mutter to marry, but everyone else would be usher to marry. What's the din? Im tim saloima amid aleph. Im tim saloima ma'ida usher shari. That was usher Reuven v'Shimon on our mutter, but all the rest of the world will be usher. L'Ruvain mahu. What happens if he goes back and says, this is your get, on the condition that you don't marry Reuven with Shimon, and then he goes back and says Ruvain. When he said Ruvain, what does it mean? Does it mean to say Ruvain you could marry, right? And V'huadin l'Shimon, and you could marry Shimon as well. Ruvain, and why did he mention Shimon? Mishum de Pasach Bey, because he opened up a Ruvain V'huadin Shimon. Ruvain dafka. So a person gives a get on Manas that you can't marry Reuven with Shimon, goes back and says Ruvain. As if we having charata on both, and he only mentioned Ruvain because it's the opening remark, or no, dafka Ruvain, but you still remain also to marry Shimon. The imtim tzleimin, if you're going to say Ruvain dafka, but it means that to Ruvain dafka, what happens to the Shimon? Man gives a get on the condition, on man gives get, and you can marry everyone except Ruvain with Shimon, and then he goes to the Shimon. What's the then vis-a-vis Ruvain? Mahu. The Shimon mate who had done the Ruvain, v'haide koma Shimon mishum de Salik Mirei, because that was the last name mentioned, but it's not to preclude the permission to marry Ruvain. You would be able to marry Ruvain as well. Ideal the Shimon dafka, or perhaps what the Shimon dafka, but not what to. But Ruvain would still remain what also to marry the Shimon. Boy Ravashi asks, he changes his mind. He says af Shimon. Right? What's the kavana? Does af mean a Ruvain koi? It means he's going to Ruvain and even Shimon. Idilman afa alma koi. What's going on the rest of the world? The kavana is that what he's being matal chaloilam. Show to it's mutter to Shimon, but you still remain also to Ruvain. And the Gemara says regarding that, the famous Teku, Tishvi, Yitaritz, Kushas, and Abayas. Shmach Gemara. Wish everyone a great day. Enjoy.